What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Sugi from Sugar Earth Media, and we are back with Star Trek Picard Season 3. This episode is called Dominion. A huge episode. We get a lot of answers about what the Changelings want. We get some backstory on Vadic, and we get perhaps the biggest cliffhanger. We're at the lowest point ever. Starfleet has been fully infiltrated. It feels like there's no way out of this one. This is a movie, guys, and I'm really excited about this season. Only 3 episodes left. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I go back to having no Star Trek shows to look forward to, but I hope you guys will take this journey along with me, and with that, let's just break into my breakdown. So in the first scene here, we get a little teaser scene, and it is our crew on the Titan hiding in a scrapyard, and they are trying to contact old friends. And of course, we got Tuvok here from Voyager, and it turns out it's actually not him. I think it was kind of cool how we did a little bit of intrigue and mystery where they're trying to suss out if he's really him or not. And we are analyzing his vocal recordings, and we are testing him with 7 of 9 asked him about games that they used to play. He seems like he knows about their history together, and then she puts, I forget exactly what it is, but there's a planet that Vulcans would never return to, and she says that that's where she wants to go, and that is the final test that he failed, and the Changeling reveals himself that it is, in fact, not the person that we think it is. So that is the start, and basically we're at a low point and we're on our own. There's no contacting any other allies, no help is coming, it is only up to us. So that's our teaser for the beginning. He of course transforms into Will Riker, and we don't find out what happens to Will in this episode. That's something I was really expecting to see, but they plant this seed of Will in kind of a dead type of form. You know, he's got these weird veins going on, and very pale looking skin, so he really doesn't look too hot there. So I love this teaser scene. I think it's great. It really brings us back up to speed. The previous episode kind of put the brakes on the plot line overall, and that teaser scene really gets us back on track, and the pacing starts back up again. I did feel like, thinking about the previous episode, after watching it, I still enjoyed that episode, but I think it really slowed the pacing down. Maybe we needed that a little bit to a certain degree, but I love that this episode really amped things up even more. So here in this first scene, we got Beverly, Picard, and Jordy talking about if there's a way to exploit the uniqueness of the Changelings, that they have evolved, and they're wondering if maybe they can reintroduce some sort of virus or something that attacks their biology specifically. Now they're weighing the morality of such an action, given that it's tantamount to genocide, according to Beverly, and the virus previously was something that was kind of shady to do to end the previous war. It's a very desperate move that is very against Starfleet's mission statement. So they're weighing the morality of it, and they kind of end up saying that, well, we're gonna try to see what we can do before we weigh the morality of it. And I find that interesting. And then in the next scene, we're picking up with Data / lore, and there's a split personality thing going on, and it's exactly what I was hoping for. I love having them both switching in and out constantly and having to fight. It's a great antagonist to have. We have one of our favorite characters, or at least for me, I love Data, and we have him with his evil twin brother in one body, and I think it's a brilliant concept, a great use of the actor's acting ability. I think it's a great storyline. I really like all the science we're spewing here, and I love that lore. Data goes from telling them exactly what they want to know to just insulting everybody. and I love the insults. It's amusing. You know, Picard is old, we know that, and kind of criticizing Jordy's daughter. I believe her name is Ashley. I don't remember offhand, but the other daughter, who's not Sydney, she is helping analyze Data here. So I think that's great. And then it kind of ends with a sort of helpless sounding Data kind of crying out for help, and that's when they turn it off. And now they're debating if there's any solutions. They're saying maybe we can lift the partition, but then they're afraid that if they lift that, the two personalities will fight against each other and Lore will win. So that's not really an option for them. So it kind of ends up as a question mark. We don't have any concrete answers there. And that's all true of 14 minutes into this episode. We're asking a lot of questions. We're not getting a lot of answers. And I think that for this point in the story where we're supposed to feel helpless by the end of this episode with that great cliffhanger, we need all of those questions to be asked and not answered. So I think it's really smart writing. One thing I forgot to mention is that in this scene, we find out that the previous disease that Picard had been diagnosed with, that Jack also supposedly had, was in fact a misdiagnosis, which I think we all knew. That was a bit of a red herring. And they give the theory that the changelings stole Picard's body in order to clone him along with Jack's blood to get a genetically similar clone of Picard that would fool all the security systems. Now, I'm a little confused because he's positronic now, so I don't know how cloning his dead body is going to help that. But I'm sure that might be just some lore that I missed in the earlier seasons. But I suspect that this is another red herring just to throw us off the trail of what they really want. And I suppose we'll find out eventually. And now we got a scene with the weird face guy who I kind of assumed was a changeling or to do with the Great Link somehow. But as it turns out, the face is kind of suggesting that it is not a changeling, that the changelings are answering to somebody else. They need the boy, Jack, for some reason. And that's the cliffhanger we end the episode with, is we're going to find out what his true nature is next week. Really looking forward to that. I have no idea. I have no clue. I would love to hear your theories in the comment section down below if you have any ideas. But I love this scene with the face. Really creepy looking face, and almost it's a greater villain than even Vadic, because by the end of the episode, you understand where Vadic is coming from. You can almost sympathize with it to a degree. So having this face, this faceless face, that's kind of this amorphous thing, that's an even greater threat than the changelings, who feel like the greatest threat ever. I think that that's really smart as well, and gives us another mystery to unpack later down the line. The face acknowledges that the changelings are a different species. He says, your people will suffer the consequences if you can't do what we want. So they're serving somebody greater. I'm really curious what that is all about. Next, we're here with Jack and Sydney, kind of picking up after last week's kind of flirtatiousness between them. There's a little bit of that last week. And Jack basically asks her to come to his quarters, and then he's suddenly able to hear her thoughts. His eyes glow red, and then he can just get inside her head, and he knows what she's thinking. And she's basically thinking, could you be more subtle about it and all that? I like that idea. I thought it was weird at first that we're hearing somebody's thoughts. We've never heard anybody's thoughts in this show and in the old Star Trek shows that I can think of offhand, although I'm sure you guys will correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear your corrections in the comment section for episodes I don't remember offhand at the moment. But yeah, I thought that was weird at first, but it turns out that it's some sort of ability that Jack has. And we see the red door behind him, and she thinks, she wants him to try to touch her hand. Can't talk today. And he does so, and then she's like, how did he know? Like, that's really creepy and weird and invasive. And basically he's just quiet about it. We see the door that we've been hearing in the vines. We hear all of that. That's coming back. We're going to learn what that's about next week. And I have a feeling it has to do with who the face is. I think the face is melded with Jack somehow. Jack is from that somehow. I'm really curious about why that is the case. So now we're back on the deck, and basically it's just Jack meeting with his father, and Jack wants to give himself up, and I love dealing with this guilt. But really, he's really led to this place because he knows something's wrong with him, and he's even talking about how he's always felt that he was different, that there's something wrong with him, and I think that that's almost, I don't know if it's a meta-commentary on the generations going on today, but I feel like the younger generation, even my generation growing up in today's world, we kind of have this feeling, right? And there's, the kind of depression and all that, the mental illness stuff. I think it's related. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it kind of feels like Jack is embodying that here. But there is going to be a sci-fi explanation for all of this. But he says he feels different, that there's something wrong with him, this deep-seated feeling, and he wants to give himself up because he doesn't feel that he's worth it. And again, he's trying to explain what just happened, but he can't really do it in direct terms. And Picard says he's not going to give up on him. So I think that that's a great scene as well. And here we are. We basically set up a trap for Vadic and her crew, who I'm not sure if they're changelings or not. I think it's kind of weird that they're speaking in a different language. I don't know if they're different species. Why, if they're changelings, wouldn't they all be communicating in the same way? Maybe they wouldn't even have to communicate, right? Like, she said in this episode that they can feel each other's pain. So presumably they can communicate without speaking or in their own special way. So maybe she's working with a different species. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Maybe they're just embodying a different species for some reason. But I really love how eccentric Vadic is, and so much emotion. And she's like, "Do you hear that? TikTok." I like the way she performs her lines. I think she's one of my favorite Star Trek villains I can think of. So they board the ship, and Jack shows up, and he's gonna bait them into a chase. And I don't know, this is one part of the episode I might kind of criticize, but, it's kind of like a lot of other, action scenes in Star Trek shows, especially lately. I don't know, we're in a world where stun phasers are a thing, so I don't know I don't understand Jack appearing before them. Maybe if they did it as a hologram or something where it's not actually him. It just feels kind of weird that he would show his face, and why wouldn't they immediately just stun him? I mean, obviously they don't want to kill him, they need him for some reason, but why wouldn't they just pull out stuns, phasers right away, and just no talking necessary at all, just shoot him right away. But he leads them on this chase. They have this plan, they set up these, force fields to block them and trap them in place, and, I kind of like that, but again, just a minor nitpick. That it doesn't really hurt my enjoyment that much, but I think it's something worth pointing out. So now we have Vadic captured, and now at the same time we have Lore taking over Data's body, and he's basically controlling the ship. And now we have two forces working against each other. Lore loves the chaos, so he doesn't want. He wants to interfere here, and he doesn't want them to easily capture these changelings. So I think it's smart to put those two things at the same time, and they kind of bring it full circle at the end, just explaining everybody here wants survival. Lore says that Lore wants to survive because he knows that if the crew has their way, Lore would be gone, Data would be back, and of course, Vadic has that motivation as well. So I think it's really interesting. We got a kind of interrogation scene here with Vadic and Beverly, and Beverly's just straight up, kind of murderous right away. This is another part of the episode that doesn't feel 100% right. I understand where she's coming from here, but this is definitely going against their Starfleet values. They kind of end the scene considering executing her in cold blood, and she even starts off this interrogation that way. It just doesn't feel right. I get that it's a mother protecting her son and all of that, but I don't know. It's just kind of fundamentally not Star Trek to me. So I don't like that they kind of decide that they're going to execute her at the end. It's something that bothers me a little bit. I can understand it, and they bring that whole survival theme back. And I get it's a desperate situation. They have to kind of compromise certain values because of the fact that Starfleet is not itself. They're the lone wolves in this situation. So I don't know, that kind of doesn't feel right to me. But I really like Vadic, how she acts in this scene. When Picard shows up, she calls out instantly that they're gonna do the good cop bad cop routine, and she's already bored of it. And I love it. And Vadic explains her backstory, that her world was the one that was destroyed by the virus. And she claims that while Starfleet, in the history book, Starfleet says that they created a cure and gave it back to the changelings after the war, she's saying that that wasn't the case, that Starfleet voted not to give it to them. Again, that's just Starfleet not really acting like itself. I get it was a war situation, but it is akin to genocide, so it doesn't feel very Star Trek to me either, but maybe we'll find out more about that. But I get that things change in wartime, and we've kind of, in this show, had the whole Starfleet is actually evil thing, and that they were, I suppose, racist against androids and all of that type of stuff. So, I understand what they're going for here. It just like, I have a bit of an issue with it, but it's still a great episode, and I understand her motivation is great, because obviously nobody is evil in their own mind, or at least you would hope not. Everybody has their own perspective on things. So she is showing her perspective that she was experimented on, along with a lot of other changelings that she considered family. And we see the experimentation later, the test tubes, all of these, these liquid forms. She hears them screaming. I absolutely love the way they wrote this scene, how it's just flashes memories that we see. And we are hearing things first. And she's describing what she's hearing. We're hearing it in the sound design. Really great script writing, incorporating the sound design as an element. We don't need to see everything happening 100%. It's kind of like how we had the captain's speech a few episodes ago about how what happened to him. And when Picard was with the Borg and all the people on his ship died, we heard first before we saw it. And I thought that was a brilliant way to tell that story. Maybe they're just trying to save budget, but honestly, it ends up as a more effective means of communicating that. So we're in this lab, and she's boiling these things and picking them apart, and she's hearing the screams. I gotta wonder if you could actually hear the screams as a human, but I would assume not. And she says, it's such an enlightened species, humanity can't feel each other's pain. And she brings up the example that would Beverly have kept her son from Picard, knowing if she could feel his pain. So, definitely bringing up the things about human nature, that we do things without considering others sometimes, despite the fact that we think we're so enlightened. And turns out she took the form of her experimenter, of her torturer. She murders her and takes her body to basically remind herself of the hate that she feels for Starfleet and humanity. So I think that was a brilliant idea, and I was wondering if we were going to get the backstory of why she has this particular body. And it makes total sense. I think this backstory is pretty much perfect for the antagonists they're trying to set up. I absolutely love it. And then simultaneously, we got this great scene with Jordy and Data. Of course, Sydney is at threat of being killed. The force fields are failing, and it's a desperate situation. Jordy's desperately trying to get through to Data, and he's talking about how much the relationship, the friendship he had with Data meant to him, that it broke him when Data died, and yet he also simultaneously was able to use the memories he had of the friendship to heal himself again. And just a really beautiful scene. I mean, it's hard not to, if you love these characters as much as I do, it's an emotional scene for us, and it's a cathartic thing for fans. So I really like that. And here we're debating with Picard, executing Vadic, and they eventually decide to do it. Again, I feel like Picard of old would have tried to find another way. Yes, it's different. It's decades later. Yes, they're parents now, so it's a different situation. But I don't know. I feel like they would have stayed the same person. But we already kind of talked about that. And now we got an action scene where we get another new power of Jack, where he is not only able to hear people's thoughts, he is able to take them over with a look. He looks into her eyes, and they both glow red, and he is able to control her movements. She does everything that he does. It's a mimic situation, and he gets her out of that fight with his combat experience, and he seemingly has some superhuman strength. Sydney's not comfortable with it. She has him at phaser point, and that definitely makes sense. Nobody would enjoy that experience. So that makes sense to me. Of course, Vadic escapes and they take over the bridge, and it all seems really dire. And Vadic has an epic speech that she gives to the full ship now that they're under control of Vadic and the Changelings. And I think it really brings the themes all back to a center. And I really like that she brings up the fluid nature of the Changelings and how there are many ways to the same sea, and calling out the similarities between everybody's motivations in this episode. I think that was really smart writing. And I love the directing of this scene. You know, she's looking at the chair. She knows the significance that this place bears for the ship as a whole. And as she sits down, she looks at her hand, which is where the face came from, and she looks at it with a grimace, with a pain. So we're gonna understand the meaning of that more once we know a little bit more about the face and why why she is beholden to him and all of that. So I'm really curious to see what's going on with that. And it's an amazing cliffhanger. I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm really curious about the mystery of Jack and all of that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And if you like this breakdown, please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comment section. I said that already. Hit me with the like as well. That definitely helps with the algorithm. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.